There's a new law on the books that pensioners really should know about, especially if you, or someone close to you, has ever had a problem with a DWP overpayment. It's called the Public Authorities Fraud, Error, and Recovery Act, 2025. Hardly anyone's heard of it. Even fewer understand what it actually changes. But it does change something significant, the way the Department for Work and Pensions goes about recovering money. It says it's owed. For years, the DWP had a particular problem. If someone owed money, say, from a benefit overpayment and they were still claiming benefits, the department could simply take a little off their payments each week. But once that person had stopped claiming, moved off benefits entirely, or wasn't in PAYE employment, the DWP's options narrowed sharply. Chasing that debt usually meant going to court. 2025 Act changes that. It gives the DWP the power to recover welfare debt by deducting funds directly from a person's bank account and, in certain circumstances, by applying to a court for a driving license disqualification against people who persistently won't pay. There are two separate things going on here, and it's important not to mix them up. Some coverage of the Act has done exactly that. The first is direct bank recovery. Under the new rules, the DWP no longer needs a court order to take money straight from someone's account. That is a genuine shift from how things worked before, when a court would typically have to get involved first. The second is driving disqualification, and this one comes with far more conditions attached. It's also the part that's caused the most confusion. A driving ban isn't something the DWP can simply impose. It has to apply to a court, and the court has to agree. The department cannot ban anyone from driving on its own authority. That distinction matters. A driving ban can only be considered if the outstanding debt is at least £1,000. The department says this would only be used as a last resort, when there's no reasonable way to recover the money through other means. Courts aren't permitted to impose a driving ban if the person has what's termed an essential need to drive for work, say if they're a courier or because of caring responsibilities. There's a filtering process, both financial and personal, before a court would ever even consider it. Perhaps most important for pensioners specifically, current benefit recipients are protected. The DWP cannot use the driving disqualification power against anyone who is currently entitled to and receiving a DWP benefit. The people this power is aimed at are those who've left the benefit system altogether but still carry a debt balance, often from a past overpayment. If you're receiving the state pension, are you in receipt of a DWP benefit in the way the Act intends and therefore protected? The state pension is technically a benefit. This is still one of the points that isn't clear from the information available. It's a reasonable question, and one the DWP should answer directly, ideally through its official guidance or code of practice. If a driving ban is imposed, it can run for up to 2 years at most. Even then, you can still get your license back. Pay the debt within 56 days, and you won't have to pay a fee to get it back. Pension credit is named as one of the 3 benefits with the highest rates of fraud, which is why claimants of it are singled out for what's called an eligibility verification measure. Under this process, banks and other financial companies will have to share some information with the DWP to help spot incorrect payments. What they actually mean by limited data hasn't been made clear yet. That's one of the things we'll need more detail on once the full guidance is available. Attendance allowance isn't mentioned specifically in the sources behind this story. That doesn't mean it sits outside the Act. The legislation is written to cover welfare debt broadly, but there's no specific confirmation either way for that benefit, so it wouldn't be right to claim otherwise. The DWP is targeting savings of £1.5 billion over the next 5 years through these specific measures. That sits inside a much larger government savings commitment, £14.6 billion tied to fraud and error activity more broadly. The government is putting 3,000 additional staff onto fraud, error, and debt activity. Those are large figures, and they tell you this isn't some minor administrative tweak. One account of the timeline says enforcement begins in October. Another specifies October 2026. Both can't be treated as settled fact at once, so the fair thing is to flag it as unresolved. Implementation does appear to be starting in October, with a gradual rollout of enforcement powers, but the precise year attached to that start date isn't consistent across the available sources. For certainty on this point, the DWP's own published guidance, once it's fully in force, is the place to check. The government describes this as a gradual rollout, not a single switch flipped on one day. Before this act, the DWP struggled to recover money from people who'd left the benefit system. Taking funds directly from a bank account typically meant a court had to get involved first. After this act, the DWP can recover money directly from bank accounts without that court order. Driving bans remain separate, a court-approved power, used, in the department's words, as a deterrent for those who can pay and won't. Debtors can still avoid enforcement altogether by agreeing an affordable repayment plan directly with the DWP. This act doesn't touch that route. If anything, this option is even more important now. It gives you a chance to sort out the debt before the DWP takes stronger action. For most current pensioners, nothing changes immediately. If you're receiving your state pension or pension credit as normal, with no outstanding debt to the DWP, none of these new powers are aimed at you. This really matters if you still have an old DWP debt. Maybe it was an overpayment from years ago that was never fully paid back, and you're no longer claiming benefits. In that case, the DWP could now take money directly from your bank account or contact you about paying the debt. Some people are already receiving letters asking them to pay back money under the 2025 Act. For anyone checking their balance at a cash machine, that could mean an unexpected shortfall if a direct recovery has taken place worth watching for, especially around the time bills and everyday shopping need paying for. On the banking side, the eligibility verification measure means online banking and account data could, in a limited and defined way, become part of how the DWP cross-checks incorrect payments. Again, the exact scope of that data sharing hasn't been fully detailed publicly, so nothing beyond limited data should be assumed. Does direct access mean the DWP can see every transaction in someone's bank account? The eligibility verification measure refers to limited data being shared to identify incorrect payments, not blanket transaction monitoring. But again, the precise boundaries of that arrangement aren't fully detailed publicly. If you only get the state pension, are you protected from this driving ban? That's still not completely clear. The state pension is a benefit, but the Act doesn't fully explain whether someone receiving only the state pension counts as being currently in receipt for this particular rule. What would you need to show a court if you rely on your car for work or caring for someone? The Act doesn't say exactly what documents you'll need. We'll have to wait for the official guidance to know what's required. Will the DWP give notice before taking money from an account? That specific detail isn't confirmed in the sources behind this piece, so it shouldn't be stated as settled either way. Whenever legislation like this becomes public, it tends to attract a second, less official wave of attention from people looking to exploit the confusion. A real risk of fraudulent letters or text messages designed to look like official DWP correspondence, threatening an immediate driving ban unless payment is made through some private link. That is not how this process works. Driving disqualification requires a court application. Some people think the DWP can just take away your driving license. It can't. A court has to make that decision after the DWP asks for it. And one misleading claim, the suggestion that current pensioners on the state pension will lose their licenses under this Act. The Act specifically exempts people currently in receipt of a DWP benefit from that particular penalty. If you receive official-looking correspondence that contradicts this, treat it with real suspicion and check directly with the DWP through channels you already know are genuine, never through a link or number provided in the letter itself. So, what do we actually know for certain? The DWP can now take money directly from a person's bank account without getting a court order first. That's one of the main changes brought in by the new law. Driving bans require a minimum debt of £1,000, are subject to court approval, and cannot be applied to anyone currently receiving a DWP benefit. Hardship protections exist for those with an essential need to drive, and the broader financial targets, £1.5 billion in DWP savings over 5 years, sitting within a £14.6 billion total savings goal, are clearly set out. What's less certain, the exact start date for enforcement, given the conflicting references to October and October 2026. There are still a few things we don't know. We don't know exactly what information the banks will give the DWP. We also don't know if there's a minimum amount of debt before the DWP can take money from your bank account. And we're still not sure what happens if the debt was caused by a mistake made by the DWP rather than by fraud. If any of this touches your own situation, a past overpayment, a benefit you've since stopped claiming, or simply wanting to know where you stand, the most reliable next step is the official code of practice on the disqualification power and direct contact with the DWP through verified channels. Organizations like Citizens Advice can help too, particularly where the rules haven't yet been fully clarified in public guidance. This is a big change in the way the DWP can recover money it's owed. But if you don't have any outstanding debt, there's no need to worry. The main thing is to know what the new rules actually mean and what they could mean for you.